Ranking the best SmackDown superstars of all time. I'm Will, that's Brandon. We are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. As always, let's cheers. Talk about some wrestling, huh?
Yeah, this one we decided to do with the SmackDown season premiere, network premiere on USA. New logo, new entrance, new entrance theme, I guess. New graphics.
Not a good theme.
But like, what stars do you think about when you think about SmackDown? That was kind of the thought behind this.
Yeah, like Brandon said, it's been 2 weeks of brand new SmackDown on USA Network. Shiny new logo, shiny new stuff. SmackDown, it was added to the dictionary by The Rock. It wasn't even a word.
Yep.
And we are 25 years into it.
Yeah. A
lot of superstars made a name on this, so let's get into it. We're going to do it top 5 style.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions first.
Okay.
I have a lot of honorable mentions that I just want to throw out there.
That's why I don't want people to get mad, because I'm sure they're going to get mad. When you talk about 5, like doing a list, it's really tough to cut it to 5. If this was like 10, I would feel more comfortable with it. But 5 made it really tough for me. I'm
going to just list my honorable mentions out here. And I'll give small reasons as to why I did not include them. And this is in no order of honorable mentions. So this is just like, I like this guy in SmackDown history. I'm going to say JBL is one of them. John Bradshaw Layfield, he carried that belt. I absolutely loved the JBL era. He did the job for John Cena, which eventually led to the Ruthless Aggression era boom of wrestling. He was just the heel when I was a kid, especially. Yep. This is definitely becoming from a nostalgic past. This is when I really started to love wrestling and watching it weekly. JBL was the big bad guy that I wanted to see get his ass whooped every single week. So I had to include him on this list. I'm going to say John Cena as well in my honorable mentions. And people are going to be like, what? John Cena, honorable mention? He spent most of his best years on Raw. I'm sorry. As much as I loved John Cena SmackDown and Dr. Thugonomics, which is what he was, and US Spinner, and introducing the WWE Spinner, which is the grossest belt and the most beautiful belt ever made. I can go on and on. He was absolutely great. Another honorable mention, Cody Rhodes. Not there yet. That's kind of what I'll say. Not there yet. Yep. But, I mean, he's there weekly. I mean, he's the star attraction. I have no doubt he will eventually be in everybody's top 5. My last honorable mention, Teddy Long. Not a superstar, but what kind of list of SmackDown is it without Teddy Long? One-on-one with the Undertaker. I mean, come on.
I didn't put him on my list. Honorable mentions. Yeah, I got. Oh God, you could go on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
and on. I did have JBL on mine. I feel like on the honorable mentions, Roman Reigns, I feel like has to kind of be in there just for the run of the last specific 4 years has been on a majority of SmackDown. I don't think it's good enough to warrant top 5, but I felt weird not having him at least mentioned in this.
Yeah, I'll step in because Roman Reigns will be an interesting topic to hit on the SmackDown thing. For some reason, I just don't like the Bloodline story. Just for me, has been like an overarching wrestling Raw SmackDown story. I don't personally just relate it to SmackDown, so that's why I left him off my own.
Yeah, and some of the bigger things or bigger moments I kind of remember
100%
on there.
100%.
So, like I said, it didn't warrant being top 5 for me, but I was like, I got to at least mention him. Eddie Guerrero is going to be on my honorable mentions. He just missed the cut. If this was top 6, he'd be 6 for me. Kind of really hard for me to do that, admittedly. And then the last honorable mention I have is Kurt Angle. I feel like Kurt Angle really carried SmackDown back in the day. I can automatically think of his matches with Lesnar and just different feuds that he's in. I just remember being so excited to see Angle actually wrestle. And then you have the comedic side of him that really kind of took over on SmackDown before he left WWF at the time, WWE. Really thought that he kind of carried that for a little bit.
Yeah, I can't comment on some of your honorable mentions because they may show up later.
I assume they're on your list.
They may show up later, which makes me feel good. It means our lists are going to be different because, like always, we don't show each other our lists. These are our honest top 5s without being influenced by one another. I'll go first. My number 5. I got to give it to him. AJ Styles. The SmackDown Live era to me was an ugly ass era in wrestling history. With Shane McMahon at GM. And just, I mean, that was an ugly time. That was the least amount that I've watched live SmackDown, even though the name was SmackDown Live. I wasn't tuning in weekly. That's when I was living off the good old social media on my phone letting me know what happened on SmackDown, okay?
Yes.
That was that era. There was one bright spot, and it was the face that runs the place. It was AJ Styles. Just phenomenal. He had so many great feuds. One that I always remember is a Samoa Joe feud with his wife getting involved and attacking the home, like old school SmackDown WWE days where they're invading people's houses.
Yes.
Getting real personal in the crowd with his wife being there and tell your kids that your daddy's coming home, but it's gonna be me or whatever he said. AJ Styles, that era, I can't stress enough. It was like a modern day version of what Cena was kind of doing during the Ruthless Aggression era time, when a bunch of guys went away from wrestling and went away from SmackDown, and somebody had to carry it. John Cena did that in the past. AJ Styles did it here, and he kind of got them to at least the Fox era where they started to get their stuff right for a little bit.
Yeah. You mentioned about somebody carrying SmackDown in a time that it wasn't really so great. I have somebody on my list later on that did that, but it's not AJ Styles. But yeah, couldn't agree more. I guess I didn't put him on there. I did just see he had his 900th WWE match, and while they were in Germany.
Not on TV?
No, while they were over in Germany, which is more than he had in TNA.
Where's AJ Styles?
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
Kind of mind blowing.
That is crazy. He carried that company too for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. The wrestling community knows how good AJ Styles is, but it's like he just doesn't get the props, you know? Like we gave it to him, but people at WWE don't, I guess. I don't know. My number 5, I went with Rey Mysterio.
Who's that jumping out the sky?
Yeah. Specifically kind of that. I mean, Rey Mysterio at a time when, I mean, he was kind of obviously unknown to a lot of WWE people at the time. He comes in and he just was somebody for the kids. I know, especially kind of around your age at the time, that people could really kind of gravitate towards. He was cool. He had different colors. He was popping out of the floor. He had the cool entrance music. He had the cool 619. You had Taz and Michael Cole and just, there comes the 619. Like, I really thought that it was somebody for me that when I think of like SmackDown, like, it was somebody that like kind of embodied like that ultimate underdog role for SmackDown for years and years and years. I still remember Big Show having him on the stretcher and throwing him into the steel post. Kali crushing his head.
That was awesome.
Just things like that. I feel like he definitely deserves to be at least mentioned on this list.
Yeah, I should have put him in my honorable mention. I don't know why I didn't write him down. 100%. Rey Mysterio, like you said, with kids my age, I was about 7, 8 watching Rey Mysterio wrestle for the first time. I tuned into wrestling because you had showed me video games, and then a friend of mine showed me SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. And SmackDown Here Comes the Pain had this really cool character named Rey Mysterio. And I was like, holy shit, this guy's real. I gotta watch. And I tuned into it. And the first match that I saw of him was Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania 21. And I was like, this guy's amazing. But obviously, since then, I've gone back and watched a bunch of his older stuff as well. Rey Mysterio was just all that. I mean, he was the coolest guy on SmackDown. He like you said, he embodied what SmackDown was at the time. I mean, just high flying, all guts to the wall. He was doing the stuff like you said, the stretch when he got thrown on the stretcher, went to the hospital for that. I mean, he had a freaking custody ladder match for his kid, who's now the best superstar in wrestling history. So gotta give him the props. And speaking of Rey Mysterio, one of the men that he did this thing for, I have at number 4. Viva la Raza, Eddie Guerrero. Come on now. Speaking of a guy who is SmackDown, that is what Eddie Guerrero is. He is SmackDown. The lowriders, the throwing the chair and falling on the ground and playing possum, the lying, the cheating, and the stealing. I mean, this dude was everything and more. His championship, when he won the title, I mean, one of the best celebrations in history. Talk about a crowd moment for the ages. It was the Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30 before the Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30. And he only would have had more of a great career if he was able to stay on this earth. So, Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, I mean, not much more to add. I mean, he was that cool. Like, he was kind of the first guy for me, at least, that I remember being like a tweener, right? Like, he's not, like, the crowd loves him. He's a face, but he does heelish stuff, like the lying and the cheating and stuff. And he just made it cool. Like, he just had that essence about him. Like, man, this guy's just really badass, really cool, funny.
Not to mention, people still try to do his playing possum thing, and no one can make it look good, man. No one can do it believably. Especially when he used to throw the chair, And then he'd sit there and the ref wouldn't turn around for a while and he'd be looking around like, come on. It was the greatest stuff ever.
It's just so good. Yeah.
Eddie's the best. Eddie's
Can't
the
add
best.
much more. My number 4, I felt like it would be criminal to not have this man on a SmackDown list. I could actually say that about the next 4 that I'm going to say. I'm going with Batista.
Oh,
I feel like at a time when there really needed to be a powerhouse guy, Evolution kind of split off, and then Batista, they sent him to SmackDown to kind of do his own thing. Batista has some great feuds, some great rivalries. He really kind of found himself there, and he was kind of the reason that I tuned in for a little bit. Just like I said, the powerhouse. It was cool to watch him. The intensity. His outfits, even I always see, like, I still to this day I see the all white like turtleneck. I see that
the glasses.
Yeah, it was just cool. I mean, it's hard because like he made feuds with like Great Khali enjoyable, and I feel like that really speaks to Batista. There was a time that they didn't really have any like popular faces that would go for like those titles. But Batista really kind of carried it there, and I feel like it would be weird to not have him at least on this list.
Yeah, I didn't have my honorable mention or my top 5, but I won't argue that Batista is the man. Around, like I mentioned that WrestleMania 21 was around when I started watching, and of course the biggest star on earth at that time was not John Cena, it was Batista. Like he was coming off the Evolution stuff, he had just done the thumbs down to Triple H, won the belt, and then craziest draft moment happened. Cena to Raw, Batista to SmackDown, and everybody looked at that as a demotion for Batista. It felt like the company kind of just sent him over there. And then he absolutely thrived. Like you said, made feuds with the Great Khali and Mark Henry. Amazing. He had tag team title runs with Rey Mysterio. He was riding in lowriders with Eddie Guerrero. I mean, the dude did absolutely everything over there. So he's an all-time guy.
Yeah. And those 3, I feel like, you having them 5, 5, 4, like those 3, the way that they intertwine it back and forth and how great it is and everything. I mean, you can't. It's kind of awesome way that just worked out.
Oh yeah, number 3 for me.
3.
You had him in your honorable mentions. Kurt Angle.
Okay.
Kurt Angle. He's just a sexy Kurt. He'll make your ankle hurt. I mean, this dude was insane. Perk Angle. Well, I mean, I guess no. This was Perk Angle. Yeah, this is Perk Angle.
It's like appetizer perk. Yeah,
appetizer. 1 a day Perk Angle. He was still sticking to the doctor recommendation at that point. I mean, what do you have to say about this guy? I mean, he was the epitome of like, it felt like the American dream in wrestling in terms of like he got to SmackDown and he was still a little yellow and didn't really know what to do with his character, and he's been on multiple interviews saying that his one rule for him joining WWE was, I never want to lose because I'm an Olympic gold medalist and I'm better than professional wrestlers. And to see that complete 180 to the point where this guy is acknowledging fans saying you suck when he comes out the door and pouring milk on his face and dancing to Sexy Kurt and just doing flips and being the best in-ring talent during the time by a mile, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, Kurt Angle is just the epitome of what SmackDown is, and I have him at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, he's arguably the greatest in the ring to do it, depending on who you ask. Yeah. No dispute there. I mean, it's Kurt Angle. What else do you need to say? I mean, it's Kurt Angle. You talk about the "you suck" chants, so I'm going to go with who came up with the "you suck" chants. Number 3, I'm going with Edge.
Yep.
We talked about a period of time where it was like you talked about with AJ Styles of really trying to have something to watch. And the time that Edge was there before he got that injury, I feel like that was really how I felt about Edge. It was a time where it was kind of like you with AJ Styles in that time. I didn't really watch a ton at that time. I watched when I could, but it was like, God, this product is just not good. But Edge really kind of found himself. He got that deserved run and couldn't be happier for the guy. I feel like a lot of people, you got to see that side of Edge, that single side at that point. You always got to see Edge and Christian, but you got to see it a little bit with the John Cena and Raw stuff, but it was kind of like, here's the keys to the car, Edge. You go make SmackDown relevant. You make them important. I feel like he really did that for a while there.
Yeah, I was never a huge Edge head, but I can't argue. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to know how great Edge was on SmackDown? he was the guy who was originally picked to beat Undertaker at WrestleMania. They were going to give him the streak.
Yeah.
That's how good he was on SmackDown.
Yeah.
I mean, that man was he was doing the absolute most. I mean, Hell in a Cell matches, bleeding weekly, feuds with anybody who they put him in a ring with, and he earned the respect to the point where they were literally going to have him break the streak. What else do you want me to say? There's no argument against that sort of tangible evidence. I mean, it's out and about now that they did that for him. And I don't have on my list or honorable mentions because I was a Cena guy. I hated Edge. Come on, man.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not the biggest Edge fan either, but I can give credit where it's due and feel like he really, really kind of saved it at that time.
Yeah. Good old Edge. Good theme song too. Good theme song too, obviously. 2 and 1. I feel like we both have to have the same guys here.
Just a question of how we ordered it.
Just a question of how we ordered it.
Okay. I feel like 1 and 2 are the spots where you like it's these two guys.
Right. It's these two guys. And so that's why I have at number 2 the man who invented the word SmackDown. I do have The Rock at number 2 on my list. I mean, what more? His catchphrase became the name of the show. The reason it was invented for it to be The Rock's show. It's The Rock. What do you want? What do I need to say? Do I need to back up The Rock here? Do I need to give reasons as to why The Rock is one of the greatest SmackDown superstars in history? If you put him at number 1, there's no debate. Go ahead and put him at number 1.
Yeah.
The Rock is just one of the greatest superstars in WWE history. I mean, literally, I don't. Do I need to say anything else?
No, I think 1 and 2 kind of stand on their own. I think it's 3 through 8, 3 through 9, 3 through 10 that people might fight you on, or disagree or give their opinion on. My number 2 is the other guy.
Oh,
my number 2 is the Undertaker.
Yeah.
1-on-1 with the Undertaker.
The Undertaker.
Not much more to say. I mean, it's the Undertaker. We talk about the steady people kind of carrying. Undertaker's there all day, every day. He's just putting on feuds with people that you're like, God, why would I watch this? Well, it's for the Undertaker. My first, I guess, serious Taker feud that I have ingrained in my head is the Randy Orton one. So that one's kind of ingrained in my head. Yeah. So that one's kind of ingrained in my head. I know he obviously had a bunch more before that. Taker, also the longevity. I mean, he was there, 20 years probably out of the 25, something like that. 19 out of the 25, something like that. Not much more to say. It's the Undertaker.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the longevity. He had multiple different characters show up on SmackDown. I mean, he started as why can't I not think of it? Badass Taker.
The American Badass.
American Badass Taker. I mean, he was literally that feud. To me, my earliest feud of Taker was Taker versus Brock Lesnar fighting in Hell in a Cell. Brock Lesnar breaking his hand to even it out when Brock Lesnar was the original Paul Heyman guy at that point. I mean, and then you fast forward 8 years and Taker's fighting for titles, and you fast forward 8 more years and he's still fighting for titles. He was the ultimate Swiss Army knife for SmackDown in terms of he was 100% the most over character at all times, who you never needed to put a belt on. But if you got in a situation where there wasn't really an obvious guy to put the belt on, throw it on Taker for a few months, and then guess what? He'll do the job. And he'll do the job in Hell in a Cell matches and buried alive matches, in casket matches. He'll let your new guy Randy Orton put him in a casket, set the thing on fire. Right. He was in his late 30s during that time. People need to appreciate he was already years into this when SmackDown started, and then he carried the brand forever. And the reason that I put him over The Rock is just because I think the longevity aspect trumps The Rock's, creating it. The Rock built the playing field for which Taker then just took off on, right? So I give it to Undertaker at number 1.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna fight you on that. My number 1 is The Rock. I mean, there's no SmackDown without The Rock. Who knows what it's called at this point? Probably WWE Friday night
main event.
yeah, something, right? Friday night fisticuffs, something like that. So
use my mouth.
It's gotta be The Rock for me because there is no SmackDown without The Rock. Obviously, the stars that we mentioned and other stars that we haven't mentioned, maybe like a Heidenreich, a Boogeyman, those people like that. They really kind of carried SmackDown. They made it is what it is today. For me, it's just that creation aspect. Obviously, Taker would have, or who knows, somebody else would have taken that ball and ran with it, like you mentioned, when they did go to a second show because it was needed. But for me, it's The Rock. But I won't fight you if you say Taker.
No Booker T.
No Booker T.
No King Booker.
King Booker, though, was solid. I'll give him that. God, there's just, I mean, that's the thing. There's so many different stars you could put on there.
I don't even know. And we didn't even have Triple H on there, who spent some time on there. But I like both.
Triple H didn't want to work Tuesdays.
Triple H didn't want to work Tuesdays. That's the best line. JBL stays on my honorable mention, bro. And then he beat the hell out of the green meanie, or whatever his name
Blue
was.
meanie, yeah.
Blue meanie. Sorry, wrong color. Anyway, those are our top 5 SmackDown superstars of all time. You can argue us on 3 to 5, but not 1 and 2, baby. That's it for there. But let us know in the comments what your guys' top 5 is. And maybe if you guys like this, we'll do some more top 5, top 10 actions. We did this at the beginning of our podcast, and we haven't visited in a while, but doing top 5s is pretty damn fun.
Yeah, it's fun to kind of revisit some of these and just talk about kind of the past,
Yeah.
Whether it's like, because obviously current stuff is fun to talk about. We like that stuff, but every once in a while it is nice to deep dive back into history and how we felt kind of back then with the nostalgia features and things like that.
Yeah, of course. Top 5s are always fun. You guys are gonna be getting a little bit more of this content because I will be going to my honeymoon before Bad Blood, so we won't be doing reviews. I apologize. I want to go have fun with my wife for a little bit, but we'll be back in action for the Bad Blood and Bad Blood review and all that good stuff that we can't wait for. But until next time, follow us on all of our socials at COD WrestlePod, COD WrestlePod. Listen to our podcast wherever you get our podcasts at YouTube, Apple, Spotify, etc. And if you want to join our Discord, hit that link tree in our bio. It's got all of our socials. Go ahead and follow all of them while you're at it. But until next time, I'm Will. That's Brandon. We are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast, and we will see you next time.